Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach and welcome to another video leading up to the start of the season. We're going to take a look at the midfield in a second, every player that I feel is relevant. I did the forwards the other day and there were a couple that maybe I left out. I think Parfitt is definitely a worthwhile POD. Obviously has his risk, but I think his numbers will cop a fair increase. And I don't think he'd be going with these guys, but wouldn't be surprised if Caleb Daniel or Tom Papley have a real nice boost in their numbers. But yeah, I just wanted to throw particularly Parfitt out there because I feel like he deserves a little more credit than he's getting. And I think if you haven't had a draft already and you're in one, he's a really good guy that you could probably get when others may not expect him to be such a prominent player. But he'll play plenty of time through the middle for the Cats this season. So the midfield, we're going to get into that. I should also mention that there will be, obviously, as I always do each year, I'll do my team reveal Thursday night, I would imagine, potentially Friday. Probably doubtful Friday, actually, because I'll be going up to the Cats Collingwood game, which I'm frothing over. But I think there might be the release on, pre-Carlton Richmond, but obviously we might not know absolutely every rookie, but you'll get a good enough idea. So the midfield. Now, as I do in these videos, I'm going to go through every relevant player. Generally, I like to go with a bit of a guide in terms of their ownership. And if they've got at least, a few percent ownership, then somebody's thinking about them, enough people to give a bit of a reason to discuss them. So some might warrant a 10 to 15 second answer. Some might be worth more of a discussion. But off the top, and the most expensive mid that we're going to pick without Mitchell and is Jack Macrae. He's in 25% of sides, and my thoughts have been well known on he and Jake Lloyd. I am not picking him. I haven't had him in my side at any stage this season. And please don't misinterpret that as I don't think he's going to have a good year. I still expect him to average around the 115 mark. And there will be a video out, just me putting those words on the line in the form of a bit of a potential dare or consequence, but stay tuned for that. So look, where do I see the floor? Just that price tag. The fact that he's averaged, a career high of about 108 prior to this, which is really good, but look, I'll get his numbers up. I just think he's far too expensive for a bloke. He's not Nat Fyfe, he's not Gary Abley, he's not Scott Pendlebury. He's a bloke who caught fire last year. He was outstanding. Look, 106.9 in 2017. That was off the back of a 94, a 99 and 100. So, yes, it was a massive jump in his numbers and he burst into super premium status and he should be in his prime, blah, blah, blah. I expect him to have an outstanding year, don't get me wrong, but we have seen time and time again guys have averages of the 120 mark, but they never find it again. Now, you might say, well, Shorty, I don't care if he drops in value. I'll be happy to have him from the start if he's going to average 117. And that's fair enough. But I just think if I'm spending near on 700K, I like to see, averages 110 plus, at least on multiple years. And we've only seen the one from Macrae. So, and I like some other mids more. So that's where I've landed. Paddy Dangerfield, obviously, everyone's picking him as a forward. And as I said in the forward video, he's an out-and-out lock. Patrick Cripps, I didn't start with him in my side just because I favoured Oliver, and Cripps came out and dominated that first JLT game, and then Oliver came out and dominated as well, even though he was fresh off some surgery and all that sort of stuff. So I think both of them you've got to have, and look, Cripps to start with, he's in 56% of sides. Basically any team worth a pinch of salt is going to have him in their team. I could see him averaging in the 120s, and that's not a big call. He averaged 119.4 last year. The 666 system will help him a little bit, but I just think he looks like he's really just in that stage of your career where you're near on invincible. He's just got that vibe of just the look of him, his size, his physique. He reads the ball out of the clearance and off the ruckman hand unbelievably well. So I'm not telling you anything you don't know there, but I just think this window of what could prove to be longer than most people's window, but I think he's going to be huge for us in SuperCoach for the next few years. Oliver, as I said, I'm a big fan. 620, I think, is a reasonable price tag for him. He's in 27% of size, so he's not as popular as Cripps, but he just finds the ball as well as anyone in the competition, you know. He just racks it up. So clearance beast, and I really enjoy what he offers. Nat Fyfe, 21% of sides. Few people have been scared off by the fact that he didn't play any JLT matches. We saw AFLX, but look, I'm going to have to own up and say that I'm part of that bracket that did get scared off. And again, it's not to say that I think he'll have a poor season or anything, but I really like to see at least one JLT performance from these premiums. And just the fact that that elbow flared up, you know, he's had concerns, they've dealt with it, it's come back. You know, it just worries me. And he's a guy that historically, the only flaw in his game from a selection point of view is the fact that he really doesn't often play the whole season. He has had these little niggles and injuries, and some bigger than others. But so it was enough to scare me off. But, you know, I'm sure all you Fyfe owners are just hoping that he becomes somewhat of a point of difference. So you were pleased with that. But Josh Kelly's probably the big one, 12% of size, and you should be scared off by this, I think. The fact that we've seen none of him through the pre-season, not even much noise about what's going on. Clearly that knee issue is somewhat of an issue. I think it was knee, maybe hip as well could be involved. Big concerns. I mean, he was a guy that, you know, say 4 or 5 months ago, I was thinking, I am so keen to start Josh Kelly in my side for 2019, but it's not going to be the case. I really think we had to see something from him in the nature of the injury. It stuck around for a while. So he's a Rolls Royce, but you just hate to see him start the season slowly and not be at full fitness, and therefore not give you the benefit that some of these other premiums may. Lachie Neale is a guy who is strongly in contention for my side at the minute. He just seems to me, and this is a gut feel read, he looks and seems like a fella who's going to thrive being the #1 man at Brisbane. Now, he certainly wasn't in Fyfe's shadow, but everyone loved to talk about Fyfe, and, you know, Neale still averaged unbelievable numbers, really, really great premium numbers. But I just feel there could be a mini bit of upside, even just 3 or 4 points. I don't see that average dropping too far. Again, like Oliver and some of these other types, he's just a ball magnet, and he's looked good through the JLT, seems to have fit into Brisbane's system really well, and that's probably the only encouragement we needed. So I think he's a good selection. Adam Treloar in 8% of sides. I'm not as big on Treloar, I must admit. It was not too long ago that I had him in my team. You know, I was pumping up his tyres, and, you know, his ball use was this big talking point. You know, the bloke can't hit a target with the boot, you know, that was the big talking point. But let me just have a look at his numbers. So I started with him, I reckon, in 2017 when he... Yeah, I'm not sure when I started with him, but I definitely had him and he didn't live up to expectation, and that 101.4 in 2017 could well be it. He's a guy who's averaged really good numbers before, but I just wonder, and the Collingwood midfield's a really interesting talking point. Is there enough points to go around? I normally don't subscribe to that theory, but there is a cap on how many points you can get in a game between the two teams and all that sort of thing. And when you throw in Sidebottom, Pendlebury, Beams, Adams will come back. Phillips can score as well. Cripps is not quite your midfield jet, but he's certainly a guy capable of getting in there. Are there enough points to go around? Don't get me wrong, you'll probably average around that 106 to 110, but, you know, I think at that price tag, you would like to be confident that you get a 110 plus, or at least around that mark. So, food for thought. This man has been the flavour of the month, Stephen Coniglio. Definitely been a guy who has seen a big rise in his ownership percentage, and it's up to 18% now, off the back of some stellar performances through the pre-season. And look, I can't blame you if you're picking him. He's a bloke who's long been touted as a star. He tags, he tackles, wins his own ball, he can kick a goal. And when I say he tags, it's more like a defensive-minded midfielder. It's not as though he's putting his own game out. He still manages to find the ball and work off his opponent. So he seems like a really well-rounded midfielder, and I think he'll be a staple in our premium mids for years to come. I can understand why people are going with him. Elliot Yeo's in 4% of teams. People probably looking at a bit of a point of difference there. You know, he was all the rage as a defender, and all of a sudden, as soon as it's like this natural feeling where, you know, they lose that status and, oh, we can't pick him. He's still one of the best midfielders in the competition, in one of the best teams in the competition. So, you know, 107.9 last year, I'd imagine he'd be around that mark. So I don't see anything too wrong with that selection. You know, he is pricey, so obviously he's in that awkward range where people probably feel, well, why don't I just find 30 or 40k elsewhere to go with an absolute super premium? That's probably what's hindering his percentage a little bit, but some people are going with him, and it's fair enough. Joel Selwood's in 3% of sides, but I would be steering clear of that one. He's going to have a change in role, and don't be sucked in by the big score in the last JLT. You know, of course, he's an outstanding player. He's going to have some great scores throughout the season, but I think Joel has lost a bit of pace. You know, he doesn't break tackles like he once did. I cannot see an increase in his numbers, and there's a chance for a bloke who has been a warrior of our team for years. There's a chance that when the end comes, it can come quickly, and he's been battered and bruised. And I just think at this stage of his career, there's a massive risk with going with a guy like him who has been so good to us for so long. But just a word of warning, there's not too many going with him, but just putting it out there. Marcus Bontempelli, I feel like we just get excited when we hear the name, but realistically, he's let us down time and time again in SuperCoach land. You know, I've started with him and I got burnt by him. You know, I hear my mates talk about, you know, I'm going to select the Bont. You know, he can kick goals, he can mark. You know, he's like Cripps. Well, he's not like Cripps. He, in dimensions and the way he can play, yes, but we have not seen it on a consistent basis at all. You know, I think we like to get sucked in, or not sucked in, but talk about the finals series of the premiership year. And, you know, elimination final wasn't anything special, but the last three finals, 145, 100, and then 140 in the grand final. But we have not seen anything, and we've now got a body of work that suggests that maybe we have to take the thought that, is he capable of 110 plus? I think we always feel as if he was, after going 78, then 103 in his second year, but then he's gone 107, 105, and 104. So those numbers are going the other way. It's been a combination. I know he's had niggles in years gone by. His role isn't always secure in a Bulldogs team that needs key targets up forward. You know, his name always gets thrown up at 193 centimetres. This is a bloke whose numbers should be going up, and they've been going down. You know, he's in the prime of his career on paper. I think he's too risky to go with. So 3% of teams, but it's not for me. Dustin Martin, I think, should be a lock. I think to get a bloke of his calibre at 563k is real juicy. I mean, I don't expect him to have the numbers he did a couple of years ago when he won the Brownlow, which, you know, we're pushing 120, but there's a good chance that he's going 110 and beyond. I think Lynch will help him. The fact that he will play predominantly through the midfield, I really like that. And I just get the sense that Richmond and their leaders, which Martin is one, have a bit of a chip on their shoulder and a point to prove after a very disappointing exit to last year. And I just think they'll be that extra bit driven. You know, it's tough to defend a flag, but there's nothing like hunting again. And I think they'll be hungry. And Martin will want to stamp himself on a lot of games, and I think he's a very good pick. Scott Pendlebury's in 3% of sides, but you can almost carbon copy what I said about Selwood. You know, their careers have mirrored one another at certain stages, and they've gone along a similar line, and I think they are as well here. And I know he did play quite a bit through the middle in the pre-season, but I just don't think we're going to see those unbelievable numbers. I think we'll see unbelievable moments from Pendlebury and great quarters and sensational games at times, but that week in, week out, I don't see. You know, he dropped to 103.5 last year, and I would imagine, you know, your best case scenario might be 105, 106 in my estimation. So probably better options to have more upside. Start scrolling probably move on to Beams, I think, who's in 5% of teams. And I can see the interest there because he's a guy that when he plays, it's just big numbers, you know. Throughout his whole career, it's been like, you know, the fitness, where's that at? Because we know when he plays, he's just so damaging. But, you know, moving to Collingwood, change of team, most likely will help him. And I see that average going up. But again, I think in combination with the fact that there's so many Collingwood midfielders, and which I think Beams is quite possibly number one when all are fully fit and firing. So I think he'll get great opportunity, don't get me wrong, but the fact that his body has let him down so many times just makes him a really difficult guy to commit to from round one. So that's probably where I sit with him. Another teammate of his, Steele Sidebottom's in 7% of sides. Now, I think he's an outstanding player and so classy, and he's a great ball user left and right, but I just wonder if we're really looking at the full set of numbers here. Over the journey, he's had a strong SuperCoach career, but nothing unbelievable. So you're forking out 550k. You want to keep this bloke for the whole season. Now, since he broke out in 2012, he's had averages of 106, 103, 113, that was big, 104, 106, 96, and 101 last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this bloke has been over 110 once. And, you know, he's 28. Yeah, okay, he's a chance to increase his numbers, but there's no sort of thought that, oh, he's in his prime now, that, you know, those numbers are going up. Like, there's no reason those numbers will change. You know, he hasn't averaged over 105, well, once in the last 4 years. Very consistent, won't let you down, but I'm not sure he has, over the course of 22 games, an absolute premium number in him. So I think we like to get excited about a Sidebottom type, but not for me. Matt Crouch is for me. I'm a big fan of this guy. I've said it before. He's my Brownlow tip. You know, it's easy to say Cripps or Fyfe or Dangerfield. I'd love for Danger to win it. I think he's a great chance, but going slightly left of centre, I'm going Matty Crouch. I just think Adelaide will respond and he'll be leading from the front with Sloane and his brother. So he's a guy who just is capable of 40 touches regularly. You know, I feel like he has Tom Mitchell numbers in him. And we know what Mitchell did last year. I'm not saying he's going to average 130, but I've got big expectations for Crouch. Big expectations. And the fact that we can get him for 550, I think he's a bit of a bargain. So I hope he doesn't let me down because he's definitely one of my first pick players. I reckon he's a very good option. Zach Merrett is in a similar mould, except he seems to be very susceptible to the tag. And how Dylan Shiel helps in that way, I don't know. Shiel will take the tag on occasions, but, you know, there will still be those times where they go, look, Merrett is still a jet and we can stop him. We know we can stop him. So we saw an improvement late last year. We definitely did. And I'm a big fan of him. I think he's a fantastic kick of the ball and he can win his own footy and he tackles really hard. He's in 5% of teams. And I must say there's been times this pre-season where I've had him and then I've just lost faith. And I won't be starting with him. There's just something about it where I just don't know. I just don't know exactly what I'm going to get from him. And as is often the case, it's not to say that he's a bad pick, but there's options I like better. So that's where I landed with that one. Menengola I touched on, but as a forward, so definitely visit that because he's a forward option. Same can be said with Devon Smith and Isaac Heaney. Angus Brayshaw is in 19% of teams, and like Coniglio, he set the world on fire during the JLT series. He was outstanding. And he's extremely tempting, you know. He had a fantastic year last year and surprised so many with that high finish in the Brownlow. But I think it's a real deal. He just seems to be a nice bit of everything. You know, we often say that, you know, this guy's a contested bull. Gee, this guy's run and carry, damaging with the foot, you know. But I think Brayshaw can win his own ball. He can work around the ground and gather some easy possessions and marks, and he can kick a goal. He's a very well-rounded player and does it all. And those numbers are definitely going up. You know, he'll average 3 figures, but guessing exactly what that number is will be the difference between a good and a not so good pick. But he's definitely in that sort of notion of flavour of the month type of player, and you can understand why. Robbie Gray, 10% of sides. Have a look at my forward line video for a bit more of him. Rory Sloane, 7% of teams. And Rory's been a guy that you could sort of class in the Merrett sort of division there. He has been outstanding at times, over a longer period of time than Merrett. But when a tag has gone to him, just seems to get blanketed. Now, last year, like many, you know, he only played the 12 games and it was a shocking season for the Crows. But prior to that, 110, 108.6, 105.5, 114.8, 107, 106.1. So I think you can safely say that he's going to average more than 105. You know, when he's up and running, he looks really, really fit. He looked good in the pre-season. And the Crows will be up and about. There's no doubt about it. I think he's a pretty handy option, very handy option. I don't see the Crows enough to say that he struggles with the tag, but I know that we have seen him struggle with the tag in the past, and sometimes it's been 140s, other times it's been 70s, but, you know, he can be a roller coaster at times, but I think he's a solid pick. I don't mind it. I certainly don't mind it. We start to really get to that lull period where blokes between, you know, less than 550k, they're in that awkward spot where they're not going to match it with the top guys, but they're still pretty hefty price financially. Dunkley, 12% of teams. Head to my forward line video. Same can be said with McLean. Same can be said with Tim Kelly. Jaeger O'Meara in 6% of teams at just over 500k. Very interesting. You know, the natural thought is, well, Tom Mitchell's out. He's going to have mathematically a better chance at getting that ball that Mitchell was racking up. And it makes sense, but I wouldn't be surprised if he averaged 100 this year or around that mark. Again, how much of an increase can we see? That will really be what you're betting on, because I think it's obvious to say he'll increase his numbers. The big worry for me is still the body, and I know that we saw him really get that right and he seems to be on a good track, but I just still feel like he's the sort of guy that if he cops a knock or a niggle, and, you know, some guys might be right by Friday night, but he needs another day, or he just pulls up sorer than other guys, and I feel like a 6-day break is always a potential concern. I just don't see him playing 22 games, and I do not know, you know, yes, he'll get a chance to rack up more of the ball, but, you know, will he cop a heavy tag now? Has he ever had that in his career? I'm not sure. You know, he's been a young gun on the rise with Gary Ablett's around him and you know, Tom Mitchell's around him. I'm sure he's been exposed to it over the journey, but I don't think it's all just roses, that the fact that he's going to have 35 instead of Mitchell now. You know, he might not be able to handle the tag, and the body can never be trusted again, in my opinion. Jarryd Lyons, you know, caught the eye of many with some impressive stuff through the JLT, and he's impressed at times throughout his career, but it's got to be a no from me. I just don't think there's enough to bank on with him. There's a few moving parts. You know, he's played forward at times too. I think his good is great, but there's got to be a reason that he's shifted around clubs and things like that. It's a no from me. Moving along as we scroll past a few, Dylan Shiel's in 7% of teams, and again, like Treloar, like Bontempelli, he falls into that category of a guy that over the journey I've felt could explode, but just hasn't, and he has let me down. I'm a massive fan for what this guy can do. He's such a damaging player at his best, break the lines, you know, beautiful sidestep, and he's a smart player. But we just haven't seen it. You know, he has everything that you would want in a player, and everything that we associate with a 100-plus scorer, and at times he's been that, but I feel like he could be a premium, but we just haven't seen it. And it gets to a point where, look, he's a great draft option, I think, but to put all your eggs in a bloke who has consistently shown us that he can't get to that level, yes, a change of club, yes, every year's another chance for him to have that outstanding season, but it gets to a point where you go, well, look, you haven't shown it yet, and I think we'll see it at some point, but predicting when that year will be, pretty tough, you know. Thumbs up if you get on board and he goes bang. But there's probably been a lot of people who have done that in the last few years and he hasn't gone bang. So there's got to be more reliable options out there. Tim Taranto, yeah, he's pretty solid choice. You know, he's looking as if, you know, we just talk about Shiel and, you know, Kelly, we obviously haven't seen him in the same side when they're both wanting those midfield minutes. So potential thing to bring into the equation there. He's a bit awkward for me. I think he's an outstanding player and I love his prospects for this year. I see those numbers going up, but he's just awkward at 480. You know, I really think, like, you know, there's better options, more reliable options a little bit north of him, and he's more expensive than a mid-pricer. So he's sort of a bit of this, a bit of that, but he's not really anything. So that's where you've just got to be. If you're going with him, you need to be extremely confident that he can be right up there with the very best, because for 480k, you want to keep him in your side for the whole season. So can he be a top 10 to 12 midfielder? I don't think so. Probably top 20. Not sure it's enough, you know, because I think he's too expensive to be a stepping stone. That's my opinion. Who else have we got floating around? You know, we're starting to work in that mid-price sort of area. You can go to my forward line vid for Petrarca. That classic lull between sort of, you know, your 400 to 520k in the midfield. It's an awkward sort of area. Dalhouse, go to the forward line vid. Here we go. Brad Crouch. 418k, 28% of sides. Yeah, I'm a massive fan. I've been tempted to get him. I've had him at times, and he's well in consideration for my team. I think he's, you know what you're going to get in terms of his ability and position. You know, he's going to be playing in the middle, in the guts, racking it up like everyone thought he could do for years. Now, his body has let him down, but he's fit at the moment. Do you want to take a punt, you know? Because I think he is a tad pricey, but, you know, he is 60k less than Taranto. So he is just in that sort of mid-price category. But I think we can go with him. And he is looking $1 million at the minute. Now, we've seen that in years gone by, and his body is broken down. So if you're feeling like taking a punt, I think he's a pretty good option to do that. But history would suggest that his body can go at any minute. So it's something to think about. And then if we scroll just a little bit further, we see Tom Rockliff, who many of you will just fall off your seats when you saw that I had him in my team. And look, he's right in the mix. I don't want to give too much away because I want my team reveal to have a little bit of suspense. But, you know, Rockliff I'm a big fan of. And, you know, he's been in my team and, you know, again, he is in that mix for a midfield position, as is Crouch, as is Libba, and as is Rocky. So it's not getting drawn into that massive JLT2 score, because he played a half in JLT1 and scored very respectably. I think it was about 50 for just a half a footy. And he looks to be a guy on a mission, point to prove. You know, you got me to this club, I'm about to show you why. I still get a little bit worried in terms of that tendency to play him not absolutely on ball, and with Wines coming back, how does that look? But I expect to see a big increase in his numbers, and I expect him to be back to those real glory days. Not the very, very best, but it's not crazy to think that an average around 105 is possible. And to be fair, anything's possible with Rockliff. We've seen that, there's not many guys that have averaged 130 and equally have turned in averages of, 60 or 70. What was last year? 74.8. So, it was a heartache for many, but one to definitely think about. Warple, go along to the forward line vid. Dom Sheed, 15% of sides, and I'm going to get the numbers out here. Going to have a look at the finals series because I think that's what it's all about. I don't think sometimes we can get carried away with players, but this is real. We're not getting carried away with his winning goal and all that sort of stuff. There is some genuine thought as to why. He's 24th, 78 games, has found himself in the midfield now for West Coast. He's a former first-round pick and struggled to lock himself into the team last year, but he made it his own through the finals. Scores of 130, 105, and then 116. Touches of 27, 27, and 32. So he really looks to believe now, and he seems to have that vibe about a player who has the confidence. I belong at this level. So, he's a very, very good mid-price option, and there's no baggage there. I think when we look at Crouch and we look at Rockliff and we look at Libba, we hope for the best, but in the back of our minds, we're like, oh, this guy could kill me, this could really hurt, and I know there's genuine danger there. Where she just seems to be like a guy who, I'm just about to arrive, guys. I haven't had any real bad injury history, I'm playing in a great team. I'm super confident in the prime of my career. Why don't you go with me? And I can see why you would do that. So $3.94 is a pretty handy option. Andy Macrae, you can go to my defenders vid for that one. There's probably not too much more to discuss. Anthony Miles is still in 8% of teams, but we've got to put a line through him, I think. He needed to impress through the pre-season, and he did not. So therefore, I think, he just had to show us something, and he didn't. So I feel it's as simple as that. Andrew Brayshaw is in 4% of teams, and I really like this guy. I think he's a very quality player. But the fact that you've got Libba just below him, you've got Sheed just above him, 40 or 50k either side, I think it makes him irrelevant. It's far riskier. At least these other guys either have scoring history or a lot to get excited about. Brayshaw just seems to be more of a solid potential mini breakout. So I think there's got to be better options around. Then we go to Liberatore, 300k, 34% of teams. And there's reason to be excited, no doubt about it. He looks to be playing through the midfield. He looks to be back. And again, he's spent some time in the wilderness, obviously had troubles with the body, but even just life, I think there's a real chance that we'll look at this year at the end and say, well, he really got himself on the straight and narrow and sorted himself out as a footballer and a person, and that resulted in a really good year. So can never be questioned his ability to stand around a stoppage and win the ball. He does that so well. It's just a natural gift he's got. So the question is, do you believe in his body? Do you believe in his ability to show the application that an AFL footballer needs to? So I think most people are backing him in. I honestly thought that number might be closer to 50%, but I think there's clearly a lot of people strongly considering him. So I don't know if there's really much more to say in the midfield there. James Cousins is in 12% of teams, and I think we'd be picking him if a man called Sam Walsh wasn't 12k cheaper. You probably can't have both. I really like what he's doing. Warple's going to be vying for similar minutes. I feel as if only one of them can absolutely shine. I feel like one will turn out to be a good SuperCoach pick and the other maybe not so much. So if you can put your finger on what that'll be and who that will be, then good on you. But I think with Walsh being right there and just looking like an unbelievable option, his role is clear. His numbers as a junior just cannot be argued. I think most are going with him, and then probably a rookie. So I think that's probably how it's going to pan out. So yeah, that's about it, guys. I appreciate you tuning in, and obviously I'll be time-stamping this one, and hopefully you guys can watch all the video. But certainly, if you've got a handful of players you're interested in hearing about, that'll make it a little bit easier in what have been sort of longer videos of late. But yeah, it's not long now at all, which is, I'm super excited. It's great to have 360 back on. It's great to turn SEN on, and it's footy. So it's a great time of the year. I always feel like anticipation towards round one is unrivaled. It's so exciting. So I can't wait to sit down tomorrow night and watch the game, and then absolutely cannot wait to get in the car and head up to the G on Friday night. It's going to be an absolute classic and massive build-up. So I hope your team is starting to come together pretty well. I must admit, the other day I thought, Jesus, I'm not exactly settled here. I need to have a bit of a think. So I look forward to your feedback on my team, which probably could still have some movement, to be fair, over the next 24 hours. But stay tuned. There will be a few more videos. But we're certainly winding up to what has been a big pre-season. So appreciate your support, and I'll be back soon. Cheers.